Qur'an is fantastic in its effect and impact on the individual. Qur'an makes everything clear. Look at this translation. I found them off-putting. The language is strange, is archaic. My audience from the beginning was meant to be the students.
Can I ask you about the rhetorical aspects and the style of the Qur'an?
The Qur'an deliberately stops to make people do something to remind them of God. Became to appreciate the Qur'an more and understand it more by reading what other people said, attacking the Qur'an.
Are there any limitations when you render the rich Arabic language into an English translation?
Thinking Muslim, we should all be thinking.
The Qur'an is the majestic word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It gives Muslims life. In the Qur'an, Allah speaks to all human beings, and those that read the Qur'an revere the majesty of its style and prose. The Qur'an was revealed in the Arabic language, and its miracle is its linguistic depth. Indeed, the challenge of the Qur'an is to produce one chapter like it. Thus, translating the Qur'an poses challenges. How does one match the eloquence of its original language, convey its intricate meanings, and at the same time touch the hearts of believers? How does one engage with the Qur'an in the West, especially within communities that have not acquired the Arabic language? Today, I am really pleased to say we have a very special guest. Professor Muhammad Abdel Haleem is the Professor of Islamic Studies and Director of the Center for Islamic Studies at the School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, of the University of London University, as well as the editor of the Journal of Qur'anic Studies. Born in Egypt, he learned the Qur'an by heart during childhood. Professor Abdel Haleem has published 2 translations of the Qur'an, including really this wonderful work, The Qur'an, a New Translation, which is very highly regarded, I think, in many circles, alhamdulillah. Professor Abdel Haleem, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to the Thinking Muslim.
Alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. If I just make a slight intervention here.
Yes, please.
It's just one translation actually, but this one is English.
Yes.
The other one is has the Arabic with it as well.
Right. Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much for that. Actually, Professor Abdel Haleem, I've now interviewed former prime ministers, secretary generals of various news broadcast agencies, and I have to say, I've never been more excited to interview someone as I have today to interview you, Professor Abdel Haleem.
Thank you very much indeed. I hope we will be able to say something exciting.
Alhamdulillah. Barakallah fi. Now, I want to start with a very basic question. It's a question about the beauty of the Quran. I have many non-Muslims who listen and watch my show. Tell us a little bit about why the Quran is so beautiful.
Good, indeed. It would make to speak about the Quran in Arabic. It is the masterpiece of the Arabic language, of course, and it has always been found to have a great impact on people. You know, even the kuffar of Mecca, who were obstinate and opposed the Prophet for many years, they admitted to themselves that the Quran is fantastic in its effect and impact on the individual. But they just could not accept that openly because they didn't want to give up their long history of Arabs and their ancestors, all the ancestors, the idols they worship and so on. But everybody agrees that the Quran in Arabic is fantastic. And really and truly, I mean, I have been living with the Quran all my life. I learned the Quran by heart as a child from age of maybe 4 or 5, started learning and have been ever since reading the Quran every day for more than one reason actually, because the type of education I went through in Azhar, the primary and secondary schools, one of the entry qualifications was learning the Quran by heart right from the beginning. And then, in addition to this, my father, who was also a Quran man, Hafiz and so on, made me يعني promised him solemnly that I will read one juz of the Quran every day throughout my life. And I have been doing this ever since. Alhamdulillah, I know it by heart, so I read it in the underground. I don't have to look at the page. It's all in my head. I read it. The effect in Arabic is really very great. When it comes to English, of course, the history is different completely. يعني the Quran was translated into Latin the 12th centuries. And in the atmosphere of the Crusades, and people who read it then were hostile, and also they didn't know enough Arabic or enough of the rhetorics of the Quran to appreciate it. So they from the beginning, a great number of people attacked it openly. And one of them, the second professor of Arabic at Cambridge, is said to have said, I will study the Quran in order to attack it. And this psychology and the fact that they are in a Western Christian atmosphere prevented them from actually appreciating the Quran. You see? There is something in the Quran. You see, in Arabic, as I said, it has a great effect. Sound. Even if you don't know Arabic and you hear someone reciting properly, you are affected. Affected by it. So the sound effect is really, I think it's very important in the Quran. It happened to be like that. But its main effect is not just the sound, but from what it says, the theology and the law and ethics of the Quran. These are very key factors in appreciating the. See, the Quran is rational. The Quran does not throw orders at people, Muslims or non-Muslims, or say, here you are, take this, believe in it. It never does that. It proves everything. In the Quran, even the existence of God himself has to be proven rationally. And that's what it does with everything. You see, if it wants to stop you from doing something, it tells you why. Not only that, but it gives you means and avenues of trying to avoid it. I'm right now studying Surah An-Nur, this chapter on light in the Quran. It starts by asking people to keep away from, to giving the penalty for adultery. But it never stops there. It goes in to give, sort of suggestions to people what they should do in order to avoid falling into that. In order to avoid falling into this. And it makes people really appreciate this. If there's time, I can go at links with this.
I would like to, yes.
You would like to do that?
Yes, please.
As I said, see, the Quran, at a time when some people in Mecca, you see, the Prophet ﷺ was, he had received insults and abuses throughout his life. First from the unbelievers of Mecca, but after that, even when he left Mecca and went to Medina, others were there to try to make his life difficult. At one time, he even accused his wife, Aisha, of adultery, which is ridiculous. These were hypocrites, as the Quran calls them. What the Quran does, it doesn't start saying, this is the history of light, or the chapter on light. It goes straight to say, This is a chapter which God speaks by himself in the plural of majesty. We have sent down and made it obligatory for people to reflect on. And then it goes straight to the issue, the main issue, which is the penalty of adultery. It says adulterous women and adulterous men should have such and such penalty. Okay? Then it doesn't stop there. Because it has penalty and because it affects a man's personality and credibility in society. It says anyone who accuses anybody else with adultery will have such and such penalty unless they prove it by producing 4 trustworthy witnesses of the Qur'an, because it will ruin the first man who will be accused. So it puts hard barrier against just accusing people of adultery. Then, because these people have accused the Prophet's wife of adultery, it just didn't close its mind to it and say these are silly people. No. Before it talks about her adultery, it talks about her alleged adultery. It talks about the penalty of adultery in general. Talk about starting with women. Women, adulteress and adulterer will have such and such penalty. Why women first? Because a woman was accused, not a man. A woman accused of adultery. Then, after that, after showing that if you accuse people wrongly, you have such and such penalty, it shows how terrible your penalty will be in the day of judgment, when your own hands and tongues and feet will all testify against you if you accuse honorable women with adultery. It doesn't stop there. It produces steps to keep people away from adultery. The surah could have finished there, finished. It has done what it has come to do. No. It gives practical steps to make sure that people will not fall into adultery. Number 1, don't walk into people's houses without knocking and asking their permission. Because if you walk in, as the Arabs used to do, Arabs used just to walk in. The Prophet, in some occasions, he will be sitting in his house, and the man just walk in. Just like this. The house is very close. The women will be there and so on. So, number 1. Number 2, it asks men and women to guard their chastity and ask women not to reveal attractive parts of their body. You see? So it stops people from eyeing women, and it stops women from revealing deliberately attractive parts of their body so that people would fall into this. Then it talks about who can a woman be seen by, or who can see women in the house, not necessarily in their full dress outside in the street, and it counts them one by one, so that outsiders are not allowed to see women in their clothing in the house, for instance. This is number 2. Number 3, it tells the Muslim community, it makes it obligatory on the Muslim community to bring about the marriages of unmarried men and women. You see? To make sure that people would not fall into this. And it gives beautiful suggestion. If they are poor, God will enrich them, and so on. And after giving these practical steps, it comes to a beautiful image of God. God is the light of the heavens and the earth. Full 1.5 page, talking about the beauty, how God's light is like. Here is an niche in which there is a lamp. The lamp is brilliant glass. The glass is like a star, and so on. Okay? All within houses of worship. This image, beautiful image. So physical beauty within houses of worship wherein people are there. It says men, but it doesn't just mean women don't have to do that. But it says women, men, because it so happened in the Prophet's mosque that in some occasions, while he was talking to them, giving the ceremony, he heard a caravan coming, train caravan coming, with bands of music, so many of them dashed out, leaving the Prophet. So that's why it says, wherein men who sit there, praising God day and night and so on, and fearing the day when they will have to see God. 1.5 pages of this. In addition to the practical steps, spiritual steps, the image of God in 1.5 pages, fantastic. Fantastic. As I said, if it asks people not to do something, it tells them why. If it asks them, orders them to do something, it says why. If it asks them to worship God alone, it says why. Rational. And never forces people. That's why it says in the end, من شاء فليؤمن ومن شاء فليكفر. Quran makes everything clear. And it's up to everybody. If they wish, they can believe. If they don't, it's up to them. They can disbelieve, giving them the freedom of believing or disbelieving. So anyone who is really ethical person and sensible person reads all this, they will say, well, I really find this convincing throughout. God is there in every verse of the Quran. This is the most important element of impact in the Quran. Every verse, God is there. God is there. By talking about His great attributes, qualities, merciful, this, that, or His actions of creation and of ordaining things to people. Beautiful, rational, impactful. That summarizes the two qualities, I would say, more than anybody else, than any other. Rational, impactful. Unfortunately, the history of translating the Quran in the West does not help. As I said,
well,
the Quran was translated first in Latin in a time when crusades were there, and people who don't know enough Arabic, they have read some grammar books. It's not grammar that's important in the Quran, rhetorics. How to excite people, how to excite them and get them to accept or refrain from doing something.
So is that what you aim to do when you translated the Quran?
Yes.
Because when I was younger, I had Mahmoud Pickfall and Abdullah Yusuf Ali.
Yes.
Like, how do you place your translation?
It is nice that you mentioned these.
Yeah.
Pickfall and
Yusuf Ali.
Yusuf Ali, they were a very big step forward, because here you have Muslims, believers, who were not out to denigrate the Quran or follow the long tradition of showing how silly it is or how unreasonable it is. It was the Quran, Muslims entered into the translation of the Quran at that time. Okay, but great that we had Yusuf Ali. The Indian Muslims, I call it Indian because at that time it was India, served a very great function. They knew English, they were Muslims, many of them knew Arabic. So I was trying to introduce the Quran, seeing and trying to show its beauty and to show it to non-Muslims. Okay? But Pickthall, he was the first English Muslim translator. But he grew up in a church. His father was a vicar. And his mind was occupied by the biblical style of the Bible. So he followed that. Literally sometimes. Literalism is one of the terrible things that you can do in the Quran translation. Many other peoples came after the modern non-Muslims translated the Quran. But when I first began to, after coming from Cambridge, I was doing literature first and started teaching literature at South. And I discovered that there are some people, non-Muslims, deliberately leave their subjects and go on to talk about the Quran in a way which to me are wrong in so many ways. I said to myself, what a great shame. I don't deserve to live if I am reading the Quran every day and leave that and busy myself with pre-Islamic Arabic and literature of the past, poetry, prose, and so on, and leave the Quran. So I started to go for the Quran. First thing was, look at these translations. I found them off-putting.
Yes.
Off-putting. The language is strange. It's archaic. So I began to, so I have to do something. First thing I did was to ask a class of my MA and PhD students together, put them together and ask them the question, what translation of the Quran you like best? Nearly all of them, really and truly, said we do not like any of these translations because they are written in a language which we haven't read at school and we don't read at university. Off-putting. What I did, okay, fine. Took a page, translated a page, said to them, take this, study it, and next week we will. They came next week. They said, well, slightly better, but still this and this and this. Changed it. They take away for a week, come back next week, until they said, this is perfect. This is what we want. My audience from the beginning was meant to be the students, young, Muslim and non-Muslim. Translators before me, non-Muslim, were writing for their own peers. Professor of Arabic writing a translation for other professors of Arabic who knew Arabic and who expect that level of academic writing, Latin, and so on. This is not the audience of the Quran, is for everybody.
Yes.
So, first was to solve this problem of the level of language.
Right.
Alhamdulillah, they accepted it. And I began to go on. Apart from the level of language,
yes,
there was style. The style of the Quran.
Yeah.
Many translators fall into this terrible thing of trying. They think you should be close to the Arabic when you are writing. The result is that you have Arabic grammar in the English sentence.
Right.
I call this translating the Quran not into English, but into Arabic English. Arabic English.
Yes.
Off-putting. In addition to the fact that the language is straight. So, what I needed, I felt, I am going to translate the Quran into English, so it should be English, not Arabic English. This was the best thing God has guided me to do. To see that students, native speakers of English read and see how nice it flows.
Yeah.
Flows.
Yes.
One of my colleagues, an English woman, when she saw the translation, she said, for the first time, the Quran flows nicely. It used to be jerky.
Yeah.
Jerky because they follow the Arabic structure again. Literalism. Literalism. I said, no. English. Real English. And I took my advice on this from the Quran itself. There's a verse in the Quran where God says, we never send, no, every prophet we sent had to use his own people's language in order to make things clear to them. His own people's language. The Arabic Quran spoke to the Arabs to affect them. So I said, translation into other language must be to speak to the language in the language and style of the English. This was something. It flows nicely.
Yeah.
It reads. It doesn't jerk.
Yes.
One other thing is
Please.
literalism. As I said, I can give many examples. Very important translators of the Quran, English and non-English. They said you put the Arabic sentence next to it, the translation. You find in the translation the very same word order in Arabic. And then they they stop in addition to literalism, atomistic, word by word. One verse and full stop, and then go back to another verse and full stop, give the number. Following the Arabic again, and the Arabic Quran, you see, you find that even the longest surah, it's called number 2, chapter 2, consists of what, 40 pages. One single paragraph. Simply because the Arabs, when they wrote the Quran, this was their way of writing things. Start from verse number 1, number 2, number 3. No stopping.
Yes.
Until the end. This is their way of. Also, they were afraid that if they indent or leave any space to start a new paragraph, someone might come and add an interpretation or tafsir which could be mixed with the Quran.
Yes.
Fine. That's for them. And there are many translators who do this. Even 2007. Translation by an English professor. I said no. Atomistic, no. Goes by chunks of meaning, not individual verses. So, according to a chunk of meaning, talks about this particular theme or topic or this little part of it. And whereas everybody had to stop at the end of the verse and go back for another verse and put number 2, and then number 3, no. I do not put 1, 2, 3. I put these numbers as superscript so that you are not stopped as a reader. You, right from the beginning to the end, paragraphs. That shows you what the Quran is talking about. This is one. If you look at this, which is an English translation, see, you find the paragraphs and no verse number to break the paragraph.
Yes.
And so on. And then dividing where to stop. This has been praised by so many people.
Yeah.
Where to stop. Dividers, I call it.
Yes.
Where to stop. Sometimes I even started a new paragraph from the middle of a sentence. In the middle of a verse. Middle of a verse, because a verse can include so many sentences. I had to stop to make the reader see that this is a new theme. This is a new theme. So that makes things much clearer. But everybody, a great number of people, Muslims and non-Muslims. I have emails to show this, praising it, non-Muslims. Say for the first time, they can read the Quran and find it appealing.
No, I've seen that myself.
Yeah. You see,
Yeah.
they said that, find it appealing, and that's what I was after this. Meaning, since one other most important thing is, this structural dividers, which I talk about, how to divide. Sometimes the Quran is talking about something, it stops, brings in short paragraph or so, about something else, and then goes back. A very striking examples of this talks about divorce and how you should behave, and don't be bitter, be friendly to each other, and nice and generous, and so on. Stop. Before it finishes the theme, it says, حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى. Keep up the prayer, especially a good prayer. Stand before God in devotion. You find English scholars saying, what on earth is this doing here? It shouldn't be there. The Quran deliberately stops to make people do something to remind them of God while they are in the middle of disputes and enmity. And so on. They go. In our village, people follow this. If there is a divorce case, find the family of the husband, family of the wife, agreeing to meet on such and such day at the afternoon prayer, Asr. They then go to the mosque, stand together, pray, say at the end, peace be to you, peace be to you, then go back to continue their discussion on divorce, which makes them less likely to be better. The Quran does this deliberately. For rhetorical purpose, it stops the theme in the middle of the theme. Many people don't understand this. I try to teach my students for every verse and every paragraph. Always ask, what is the function of this sentence or paragraph? Why is it there? And how it is connected to what's before and what is after. Having also taught them that before they embark on studying the surah in detail, is to take a full view of the surah, holistic view before. That makes them more likely to give a proper understanding, have a proper understanding and proper explanation. And this is what I tried, this rhetoric. I call this part of the rhetorics of the Quran. Yeah. Rhetorics have not been studied in the West. Lots of grammar in the Arabic departments of here and there for centuries. But the rhetorics and the Quranic way of talking about things, the style the Quranic uses to talk about its teaching, has not been studied. Really? For reasons of lack of translation of that particular part of books which talks about grammar and rhetorics of the Quran, because they simply thought it was all grammar and we have enough grammar, but it isn't. I translated a number of things from this, wrote a number of articles. They are now part of how to read, how to understand, how to connect. Without this, for centuries, they said, what on earth is doing here? It jumps unexpectedly. It does not jump. Talking about the prayer of the model of divorce, saying them to be generous with each other, asking them to stand in devotion for God and then go back to continue their discussion. This is not jump. This is not jump. The style, I have a module or a course which is called the Quran Language, Style and Translation into English. I think I was the only one, really, and up to now, who introduces this in the teaching of different departments of Arabic and Quranic Studies. The university, and universities in this country, I know who is there and who is doing what. We have to educate people about this. The rhetorical aspects of the Quran.
Can I ask you about the rhetorical aspects and the style of the Quran?
Yes.
Are there any limitations when you render the rich Arabic language into an English translation?
There are indeed, yes. There are. The Arabic Quran is rich. It's rich. I can give you one example.
Please.
Telling people, do this and trust God, because God would provide for everyone, whoever He wishes to provide to. بغير حساب. بغير حساب. God will provide بغير حساب. In Arabic, this little phrase has at least 4 meanings. In English, you can't do it. You can't put a phrase which has such 4 meanings that بغير حساب. Does it mean limitlessly? God will provide limitlessly. God will provide without calling people to account. He will just give them من غير الحساب, before the judgment day and on the judgment day. Before, without the judgment, without judgment. Or does it mean He will provide, you see, I was about 3 or 4, limitlessly, and so also بغير حساب can mean nobody is there to dictate to him or ask him, why did you do this? Give this man that and didn't give this man that. All of these, about 4 meaning. You can't have an English sentence in this particular aspect, which you'll have in translation, you are stuck.
Yes.
You have to select one and say, this is the translation.
And what did you
That
say?
impoverishes the Arabic Quran.
What did you select out of those 4?
Oh, I'm according context. To me, context rules supreme. It determines that this is what you should say in this context. Read before and read after. Don't decide without that. And I have written articles, and context has been neglected in English or in Western scholars of the Quran. Yani he didn't have, there are some who have details here and there, but really the context is most important in the Quran for non-Muslims and for Muslims. You know, for Muslims themselves, you go to the tafsir book, tafsir is interpretation of the Quran. You will find someone say, this word means this, and this, and this, and this, 4 or 5, when in fact it means nothing but one single one of these. The scholars of the past felt that it is their duty to list everything. If you don't, you are concealing knowledge, as the Quran calls it. So they put everything. To me, no. Context. And say this, how it should be. When you read, you will find meaningful statements, not jumping and things which have nothing much to do with each other. This is a very important aspect of understanding the Quran.
Professor Abdel Haleem, how do you've in previous answers, you've talked about Western academia and how it engages with Quran and maybe Islamic studies in general.
Yes.
What's your thoughts about...
Now,
yeah.
The Quranic study started in a hostile time, hostility between.
Yes.
And then, of course, Christian preaching and so on. It's natural, of course, for these people, if they are vicars or so on, to believe that the New Testament is the best and it's the only good thing, the Quran is nothing. It was natural. And this went on for some time. Yes. Then, of course, more and more recent times, we had people, non-Muslims, some who are good scholars, who were not out to just pick mistakes here and there and show how bad it is.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, there are people like that. Such people have served a good purpose. Because, I myself started learning the Quran by heart, went to Al-Azhar, we studied it at great length there, but only within that circle. When I came here, two things happened. Number one, I had to deal with it in English, not the Arabic I have learned as a child. That makes me think. You think more if you are forced to write in another language. This is one useful thing for me. The other thing, of course, is that the non-Muslims discussions and talking about the Quran. Now, these people, English, French, German, Italian, they come from very sophisticated languages and sophisticated culture and sophisticated scholarship. They have something nice, useful too. If they are not biased or prejudiced, they have useful things. I have learned from that.
Yeah.
And I have learned for myself that when they do something silly, it's because they have not understood the Arabic Quran and simply kept using what translators have done for centuries. Inherited misunderstanding. So, we have more people now, or more non-Muslims, and producing useful things. I find it useful. I became to appreciate the Quran more and understand it more by reading what other people said attacking the Quran. Because I saw where they have gone wrong and really even did not understand what the Quran. So, as I said, many of them did very good. Some of them are still doing very good. We should read what they said, especially Muslim academics.
Yeah.
Ordinary Muslim in the streets may not be so inclined to read because they will say these are kuffar anyway. And what do you expect from them? We have the Quran. That's enough for me.
Yeah.
That's for ordinary Muslims. For Muslims who want to be scholars and academics, you have to read everything. Even, look, every criticism they made of the Quran has been leveled at the Quran for centuries. At the time of the revelation, the kuffar, the non-believers of Mecca, criticized it. Nearly everything said now has been said before.
Yeah.
So there is nothing new. Nothing new. If you know, you see how to see the right thing. So for Muslim scholars, they should read. One of the questions was why they don't read biblical studies. That's true. Many Muslims will say, why read the Bible? Muslim in the Muslim land, in the Arabic for instance, they will say, what? We don't believe that this Old Testament or New Testament are the right one. Some tahrif or corruption happened in them. And in any case, why spend any minute on that? We have the Quran. So, natural, of course, for ordinary men in the streets, Muslims would say so. But I think every scholar absolutely should read everything in the New Testament and the Old Testament. Much of what is there is great, has been said in the Quran itself. The Quran does not dismiss good things simply because they have been talked about before. No.
How much should a believer engage with this in-depth study of Quran as you would do as
an ordinary believer,
an ordinary
man in the street? يعني I think every Muslim should know the Quran and read, if not all of this, in a translation at least.
Yes.
They should, because this is the central piece of our faith. So all Muslims should. Now, in what way Arabic do we expect people to learn Arabic before learning the Quran?
Yes.
No, it's wrong. The vast numbers of Muslims in Persia, in Turkey, you call it Iran now, I think, in Iran, in Turkey, in South Asia, Southeast Asia, cannot spend the time to learn Arabic. And why should they? Why should a man who's an engineer in Pakistan or so, and he gives the time to learning all the Arabic language? It's not necessary. What they should do, you see, for Muslim, ordinary Muslim, select a translation, which you think is reliable, and which has people have seen that it is easy to read and to understand. Start with that. Then every Muslim have to learn something of the Quran in Arabic. We pray. The Arabic Salah is all in Arabic.
Yes.
And we teach it to Muslim children. They should learn that much in order to utter and pray to God in the very words that the Prophet himself has used. And generations of Muslims have used. It connects him with billions, millions and billions of Muslims now and in the past who have learned that little amount of Arabic. In addition to this, short passages. Here, don't expect Muslim children in Enfield or in here to learn enough Arabic or start with little passages in English. In English. Teach them some Arabic.
Yes.
At least to get a taste. And when if they learn a few verses or a few surahs and understood them, they will appreciate when other parts of the Quran are read even in Arabic. They will appreciate it. I have seen people, when recently there was a funeral, I was invited. And I went there. They were burying, and the person who was burying the body and prepared all this is an Arab. So he was talking in Arabic all the time and speaking to the deceased in Arabic. I said to him, man, he doesn't know a word of this. He knows only English and Urdu. But he didn't listen to me. Do you know, I saw that when one of the people, the audience, was asked to read a piece of the Quran, and he stood and read that chapter, the elephant, Ashab al-Fil, beautifully in Arabic. But I was amazed. What is the connection of the infants' invasion of Mecca? Elephants, you see, invasion of Mecca and who were burying a Muslim woman, a man in England. No connection, but when he was reading, everybody went like this. Listening, very great attention. It was beautiful for me as an Arab and someone who is concerned with the Quran to see this. They should learn something. But these passages here and there and in Arabic so that they can get the sense, can appreciate when it is read, even if they don't understand it. What we need to do as Muslims for our children and grandchildren, I need to see Qur'an, children Qur'an, selections, was nicely illustrated and beautifully expressed for the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, and then beyond that, another level, and another level for grown-up youth, Muslim youth, selections, rather than just say, you have a little child and say, hey, what? Yes, praise God and read. This is the Quran. Means nothing. We have to learn how to get them gradually appreciate the Quran. And then, of course, when they are grown up, if they wish to read it all in English, yes. And some of them even wish to learn Arabic. I've seen people here in London who are not doing Arabic at school, at universities, but they join Arabic courses because they said this is the language of the Quran, the language of the Prophet. We must learn that. And they go on for years trying. Good. We should provide all. We should provide for everybody what suits their needs and their age and their level of education. Really, our task is very important. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen that I have been able to do something like this in English, which people find nice, understandable. As I was saying, I go to the mosque for the prayer, the south gate. When I go out, I stand. I find Muslim women coming to say, oh, are you the translator of the Quran? Alhamdulillah. God rewards you. It's so nice. I have bought 3 copies, one for my husband and one for my children. Can you please sign these? And naturally, I am very pleased to see this.
Alhamdulillah. Can I ask you about Western academia?
Yes.
Often Western academics, they cite classical works, books of tafsir like Tabari, in order to propagate maybe a very weak opinion. Why did Islamic Mufassireen from the past, Muslim Mufassireen...
As I said, these were people who, when you were worshipping God, they considered tafsir as an act of worship. And they considered it their duty to list everything that has been said and left it to other scholars to come and sift and comment. Now, the Mufassireen, of course, the tafsir is useful. But really and truly, we need a tafsir that suits our days. If you go to the ordinary tafsir by Dawi or Suyuti or this, they talk about so many things which do not concern us. Tells you, for instance, this is the sentence, this is the subject of the sentence, this is the object, this is the predicate. We don't need this because they have already a word which is a subject, has already been put a subject in English. You don't need Suyuti to tell you that this is a subject. And they don't talk about what I consider to be needed now. Seeing how the Quran connects, how the verses of the Surah connects with each other, and the rhetorical interruption and things like this to understand. Otherwise, people will keep saying, why is this here? They said, 2007, I'm a professor in Oxford, talking about Surah Al-Ahqaf, which is 46. 3 passages, this and this and this, have nothing to do with this surah. Before him, another Western scholar, English, same thing, has these 3 passages, They are just nothing to do with it, and they shouldn't be there. Absolutely wrong. If they know how, what they need to know is how the Quran expresses itself. See, the Quran, there is one habit of the Quran. It does not, at the beginning of a new topic, stop to say the topic sentence is this and that. So we are going in the following paragraph to talk about this. This is not part of the habits of the Quran. The habit just gives you the paragraph without introducing it, because if you learn its habits, you will not need the introduction. What we need to know is the habits of the Quran and its ways of expressing its meaning, its message. If we know enough of this, nothing will be surprising. On the contrary, you will see how lovely, how beautiful these come next to each other.
Can I ask you a question about life in the West, but life generally? I mean, for example, last 6 weeks I've been fixated on the British general election, and politics has been on my mind. And of course, in such an environment, you can very easily shift into the Machiavellian paradigm, where you're thinking about politics.
Yes.
How
You see, Muslims are living here.
Yes.
You can't run away from this.
Yes.
Usually people have to have this life. Election, you should take interest in the election and see who's, and if you can help, do that. But you should make part of your life and your time, day or night, for the Quran. Then you will be able to judge. They do things in Parliament, sometimes against Islamic law, against Christian ethics, against Jewish ethics. We cannot change that. Leave them. See, this is a free country. I am a Muslim. I pray, alhamdulillah, every time of the prayers, I pray them. I read the Quran. I live my life as a Muslim. And nobody can force me to eat pork. Nobody can force me to marry another man. If this is what they do, let them get on with their life. You live your proper life. That's how I think the attitude that Muslims should have.
Yes. I have one last question for you, Professor Abdel Haleem. It seems in today's discussion you are alive with the Quran. Have you ever, alhamdulillah, found any tiredness, any feeling of the Quran has now been exhausted as an academic or
really.
research study?
No, absolutely not.
Really?
Because having learned that much about the Quran, even from what others attack it by, it's beautiful. In Arabic, as an Arab, I found it. Yani, when I have done everything I could do, when any translator has done everything they could do, in the end, I say, but the Arabic Quran is far better than this. Once, a colleague, a friend, a Muslim friend, phoned me from Oxford, saying, how did you translate this verse? I said, yes, this is my translation. She said, no, the Arabic is better. So I said to her, Nadia, her name was Nadia, did I ever claim to you that I have the same rhetorical ability as the original author of the Quran? She laughed and said, no. And it's great. Really, it's very nice. You never get tired of it. I listen to it sometimes. I have this here. We have so many Egyptian reciters. I sometimes listen to them in order to see how badly, not badly, but strangely, see many Muslims here, non-Muslim actually, when they read the Egyptian recital, doing this and so on, Some say it's very strange. Why do they do it like that? Because of the intonation and so on. They like it in Arabic, like that. I'm an Arab. But I tell you, I've been here for too long, for not too long, but long enough to now sit apart and say, actually, this recital is doing his job well. He spoils the Quran.
Professor Abdel Haleem, it's really been a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you very much for your time. Jazakallah khair.
I'm very pleased. Inshallah, I wish you great success thinking Muslim. We should all be thinking Muslim.
We should.
I will do my best.
Barakallah fi. Please remember to subscribe to our social media and YouTube channels and head over to our website thinkingmuslim.com to sign up to my weekly newsletter. Jazakallah khair.